Cena woke up to the soft light of early morning streaming through the window. The city outside was just starting to stir, and the distant hum of traffic filled the air. His apartment was quiet, almost too quiet, but he liked it that way. Mornings were the only time he could think clearly without distractions. He stretched and moved to the kitchen, putting on the kettle and preparing his breakfast. Everything felt ordinary, almost mundane, but Cena had a way of noticing things that most people overlooked. As he ate, he glanced out the window at the street below. People were walking to work, some carrying coffee cups, others lost in their phones. There was a sense of rhythm in the chaos, a pattern he always found comforting. It was in these small, ordinary moments that Cena felt most aware, most alive. He could spot things that didn't belong, small changes that others would dismiss. And today, something caught his eye. A man was standing near the entrance of the nearby subway station. On first glance, he seemed like anyone else waiting for the train. But Cena noticed the way he shifted from foot to foot, his eyes darting around nervously. His hands twitched, and he kept glancing at a small notebook in his hand. Cena felt a familiar twinge in his chest. Something was off. He had learned over the years to trust that feeling. Cena finished his breakfast quickly and decided to take a walk. The fresh air helped him think, and walking gave him a better view of the street. As he passed the cafe where he sometimes stopped for a mid-morning coffee, he noticed the man again. This time, the man was scribbling something in the notebook and then tucking it away into his coat. Cena's curiosity grew, but he stayed calm, observing from a distance. He didn't want to alarm anyone, but he needed to understand what was happening. The man's actions became more peculiar. He made a series of small gestures with his fingers, almost like a code, before looking around again. Cena's mind raced. He had seen something like this before, years ago in a situation he had read about but never experienced firsthand. It was subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye, but it was a mixed signal. A call for help, carefully hidden in plain sight. Cena's heart rate quickened, but he forced himself to remain composed. He walked closer, pretending to browse his phone while keeping the man in sight. Cena noticed a few other people nearby glancing at the man, but none of them seemed to understand the meaning of his gestures. He realized that the man might be in serious trouble, and every second counted. Cena thought about what he could do without drawing attention. There were too many variables to act rashly. One wrong move could make things worse. Cena found a spot across the street where he could watch more closely. The man paused for a moment, looking directly at the entrance of the subway. He raised his hand slightly, and in that tiny motion, Cena recognized the SOS signal. His mind immediately switched into problem-solving mode. He had seen codes like this in training materials for emergency situations, and though he wasn't a professional in that field, he had learned enough to interpret subtle signs. Cena's mind raced through possibilities. Was the man being followed? Was there a threat nearby? Could this be a trap? He took a deep breath, reminding himself that staying calm was the first step. He needed more information before making any move. Cena slowly approached a nearby bench, sitting down as if taking a break from his walk. From there, he could see the man clearly without being noticed. The man's actions became more deliberate. He wrote something down, then looked around, scanning the crowd with anxious eyes. Cena's attention to detail was critical now. Every gesture, every glance mattered. He noticed a small bag at the man's feet, slightly open, revealing what looked like tools or equipment. Cena felt a chill. The situation was more serious than he initially thought. This was not just a random act of nervousness. Someone needed help and time was running out. Cena decided to move slightly closer, blending in with the morning crowd. He noticed a woman with a stroller pausing to check her phone, a man carrying a briefcase rushing past, and a group of teenagers laughing as they walked to school. Everyone was absorbed in their own world, oblivious to the silent plea for help in their midst. Cena felt the weight of responsibility. He couldn't rely on anyone else noticing this. The man's safety depended on him. Cena's training and observation came to the forefront. He scanned the area for exits, potential threats, and anyone who might be watching the man closely. His mind created a map of the situation, noting patterns in the crowd and the flow of people around the subway entrance. He considered his options carefully. A direct approach might alert the wrong people, but staying hidden and observing also carried risks. The balance between action and caution was delicate. The man suddenly moved, crouching slightly and speaking in hushed tones to someone who had just appeared from behind a pillar. Cena couldn't hear what was said, but he could see the tension in the man's posture. It was a subtle dance of fear and caution. Cena realized that the situation was escalating. He needed to make a decision quickly. He couldn't let this go unnoticed, but he also couldn't act recklessly. Cena adjusted his position, keeping the man in view while moving closer to the subway entrance. His steps were casual, blending in with the flow of commuters. He noticed a small detail that might have been easy to miss. The man had left a mark on the edge of a newspaper stand, a subtle symbol indicating a meeting point or a signal to someone else. Cena's heart pounded. This was definitely a call for help, cleverly hidden. He considered calling the authorities but hesitated. Without a clear understanding of the situation, involving them too soon could endanger the man. Cena decided that he would stay close, observe, and be ready to intervene if necessary. He reminded himself that patience and attention to detail were his strongest tools now. The man's gaze suddenly met Cena's, almost fleetingly. It wasn't a direct plea, but it was enough for Cena to sense the urgency. He nodded subtly, signaling that he understood and that help was on the way, even if it was in the form of quiet vigilance. Cena knew that even this small acknowledgement could give the man a sense of hope. Minutes stretched, feeling like hours. Cena stayed calm, his mind alert to every movement, every shift in the crowd. The man made a few more gestures, each one confirming what Cena had suspected. This was not a random event. Someone was in danger, and the SOS signal was a lifeline. Cena's role now was clear: watch, wait, and be ready to act when the moment arrived. As the morning progressed, the city grew busier. Cars honked, people chattered, and the noise of everyday life filled the air. Yet in the middle of it all, Cena's focus never wavered. He saw the subtle shifts in the man's body language, the careful glances around the area, and the small signs that indicated an escalating threat. Cena's mind processed everything in real time, preparing him for the crucial moment when he would need to step in. The man took a deep breath and seemed to settle, but Cena could sense the tension still beneath the surface. Something was coming, something that would force Cena to move from observer to active participant. He tightened his grip on the strap of his bag, ready to make a decision that could change everything. And then, in a fleeting moment that only Cena seemed to notice, the man raised his hand in a final, subtle gesture. It was a clear, unmistakable SOS signal, a silent cry for help that only someone paying close attention could catch. Cena's mind went calm and focused. He knew that what he did next would matter more than anything else in the world right now. The ordinary morning had turned into something extraordinary, and Cena was ready to face it. Cena felt a surge of determination as he watched the man from a safe distance. Every small gesture and movement mattered now. He needed to understand the danger before acting. The man continued his subtle movements, glancing around nervously, speaking quietly to himself or perhaps to someone invisible to others. Cena noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers tapped lightly against his coat. This was someone in trouble, and Cena knew he had to stay alert. He scanned the surrounding area carefully, looking for anyone who seemed out of place. There were people walking past, talking on their phones and going about their morning routines. None of them appeared to notice the signal, and that was just as well. Cena knew that any sudden interference could escalate the situation. He had to be strategic, patient, and precise. Cena thought back to the small bits of information he had gathered over the years. From news articles, documentaries, and personal experiences, he had learned that some people in danger tried to communicate discreetly to avoid being detected by the wrong eyes. This man's gestures, small and subtle as they were, fit the pattern perfectly. Cena felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. But he also felt a strange sense of focus, as though all the chaos of the city had been filtered away and only this moment existed. The man shifted again, moving closer to the subway entrance. Cena noticed the way he kept checking behind himself, ensuring he was not being followed. His movements were careful, deliberate, and full of tension. Cena understood that the man was trying to stay hidden, yet signal for help in a way that would be understood by someone paying attention. Cena had been paying attention, and now it was his role to act when the time came. He adjusted his position slightly, keeping the man in sight while remaining inconspicuous. The crowd made it easy to blend in, and Cena knew he could use it to his advantage. He observed the patterns of movement, noting who seemed to linger longer than usual and who was just passing by. His mind created a map of potential threats, safe zones, and escape routes. Every detail mattered, and Cena focused on them all. As he continued to observe, Cena noticed that the man had pulled out a small phone and was typing something quickly, looking over his shoulder as he did so. Cena's instincts told him that a message was being sent to someone else, perhaps for backup or guidance, but the urgency in the man's gestures indicated that help had not yet arrived. Cena realized that time was critical. He needed to be ready to intervene if necessary. Minutes passed, and the man seemed to grow more agitated. He crouched slightly, speaking quietly, and then adjusted his coat as though hiding something important. Cena saw a faint glimmer of metal near the edge of the coat pocket. Something small but significant. It was clear to Cena that the man was preparing for something, perhaps to protect himself or to make a move that could help him escape danger. Cena's mind worked quickly. He considered approaching the man directly, but he knew that could be risky. He could try to signal to him, but any obvious gesture might be misinterpreted or alert the wrong person. Cena had to stay calm and think several steps ahead. He observed, analyzed, and waited for the right moment to act. He noticed a figure approaching the man from across the street, a person who seemed to be watching him closely. Cena's heart quickened. The threat was real and immediate. He adjusted his stance, making sure he had a clear line of sight to both the man in danger and the approaching figure. Cena knew he had to protect the man without being seen, to keep him calm and to act decisively if the situation escalated. The man in danger made a small gesture with his fingers again, a subtle call for help. Cena recognized it instantly. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. He could see the fear in the man's eyes, the uncertainty in his movements, and he knew that the next few moments could change everything. Cena had to act with precision, yet stay invisible to anyone who might pose a threat. As the approaching figure drew closer, Cena noticed the tension in their steps. They moved quickly, scanning the area, seemingly unaware of Cena but focused entirely on the man. Cena realized that the situation could turn violent at any moment. He considered calling for help, but the risk of drawing attention was too high. He had to rely on his own skills and instincts. Cena slowly moved along the edge of the crowd, keeping the man in his peripheral vision. He noticed a few small objects on the ground nearby that could be useful if needed. A discarded umbrella, a newspaper, and a metal railing. He stored these options in his mind, thinking about how they could help him create a barrier or distraction if the approaching figure made a move. The man glanced around, as if sensing something behind him, and Cena could see the momentary relief when he noticed no immediate threat. But the tension remained. Cena knew that the danger was still present and that he had to stay vigilant. Every second counted. He could feel the energy in the street shifting, the subtle changes in body language and the signs of impending action. The approaching figure was now only a few steps away from the man. Cena observed their movements carefully, noting the way they scanned the crowd and adjusted their pace. It was clear that this person had a specific target in mind. Cena's mind raced with possibilities. He considered intercepting the figure, creating a diversion, or guiding the man to a safer location. Each option carried risks, but Cena had no choice but to decide quickly. The man in danger crouched slightly as if preparing to move or defend himself. Cena's instincts told him that the moment to act was coming. He needed to be ready to step in, but he also needed to remain calm, controlled, and strategic. Panic would only make the situation worse. Cena's focus sharpened, and he felt a strange clarity, as though everything around him had narrowed down to this single, critical moment. Then, in a fleeting instant, the man made a final, subtle gesture with his hand. Cena understood it perfectly. It was the signal he had been waiting for, a silent request for immediate help. Cena's heart raced, but he forced himself to move with precision. He shifted slightly, keeping the approaching figure in sight while preparing to intervene if necessary. The street around him seemed to slow down, each movement magnified in his awareness. Cena's mind calculated the next steps. He considered the environment, the crowd, the positioning of both the man in danger and the approaching figure. He noticed a small alley nearby, an opening that could provide a quick escape or a safe place to guide the man. He mentally mapped the route, thinking about how to move without drawing attention or causing panic. The approaching figure stopped momentarily, scanning the crowd more carefully. Cena could see the hesitation in their posture, the uncertainty creeping in. It was a brief opportunity, and Cena knew he had to be ready to act instantly. He adjusted his stance, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, but also the clarity of purpose that came with knowing what had to be done. As the figure took a step forward, Cena noticed a few bystanders reacting. Though they seemed unaware of the danger, some moved closer to see what was happening. Others glanced nervously at the man in danger. Cena realized that timing was everything. One wrong move could alert the figure or put the man in more danger. He took a slow, deep breath, steadying his nerves and prepared for the moment when action would be unavoidable. The man in danger glanced around one last time, his eyes meeting Cena's briefly. It was a silent acknowledgement, a shared understanding that help was coming. Cena felt a surge of determination. He knew what he had to do next, but the situation was still delicate. The approaching figure had not noticed him yet, and Cena had to maintain that advantage. Cena's focus was absolute. He watched every movement, every subtle shift in posture, every glance and gesture. He understood the gravity of the situation and the responsibility that rested on his shoulders. He could feel the tension in the air, the quiet urgency that surrounded the man in danger. Cena's mind was sharp, calculating, and ready to act at the precise moment when intervention would be necessary. The street seemed to pulse with energy, the crowd moving around him in a blur, but Cena's attention was fixed on the man and the approaching figure. Every detail mattered, every decision counted. Cena knew that the next few moments could change everything, and he was ready to step in when the time came. Cena shifted slightly, moving along the edge of the crowd while keeping both the man in danger and the approaching figure in view. Every step he took was calculated, blending into the movement of commuters and avoiding any sudden motion that could draw attention. His eyes scanned the surroundings for anything he could use, objects, pathways, or people who might unwittingly help create space between the man and the approaching figure. He noticed a metal railing nearby that could serve as a barrier if needed. A small newsstand could provide cover or a distraction. Cena began planning small interventions that could keep the man safe without drawing attention. The subtlety was crucial. The man had signaled for help, but that help had to remain invisible to the threat. Cena felt the pressure mounting, but he kept his mind clear, knowing panic would only jeopardize the plan. The man took a step closer to the subway entrance, and Cena saw the brief flicker of fear in his eyes. The approaching figure mirrored his movements, adjusting their pace to keep the man in sight. Cena realized the situation could escalate at any moment. He silently counted the steps, noting the distance and speed of the figure. Timing was everything. As the man moved, Cena subtly changed his position, ensuring he could intervene if the figure made a sudden move. He noticed a few bystanders nearby, including a woman carrying a backpack and a man checking his phone. Cena's mind raced with possibilities. How to use these people as shields or distractions if needed. He could manipulate the flow of the crowd without them realizing it, creating a safe corridor for the man. The man crouched slightly, as if preparing for something. Cena recognized the gesture as both defensive and signaling readiness. He felt a surge of determination. This was the moment when observation alone would no longer be enough. Cena needed to act, but the challenge was to do so in a way that remained unnoticed by the approaching figure. He took a deep breath, calming his nerves and focusing on the next few moves. Cena noticed a discarded newspaper on the ground near a bench. He picked it up casually, folding it to hide its presence, and kept it in hand as he walked closer. The newspaper could serve as a small distraction if the figure made a sudden move. He also kept the railing and the newsstand in mind as potential tools to create barriers or cover. Cena's mind worked quickly, calculating every possible scenario. The approaching figure stepped closer, scanning the area, their gaze sharp and deliberate. Cena noticed the tension in their shoulders, the slight twitch in their hands. The threat was real, and Cena understood that any wrong move could trigger a confrontation. He remained calm, moving slowly and deliberately to stay unnoticed while preparing for action. The man in danger adjusted his coat, revealing the faint glimmer of something small, possibly a tool or personal item. Cena's pulse quickened. This confirmed that the situation was more serious than he had initially thought. Cena took another step closer to the man, positioning himself at just the right distance to intervene if needed. He observed the approaching figure's pace and posture, noting every detail. His eyes flicked to the crowd around him, identifying individuals who could be used subtly to shield the man or create a distraction. Cena felt the weight of responsibility. knowing that the man's safety depended on his ability to act without alerting the threat. The man in danger made another subtle gesture, a small flick of the wrist that Cena immediately recognized as a silent signal. It confirmed that he needed immediate intervention. Cena's mind raced through options. He could create a barrier, guide the man toward a safe route, or use objects in the environment to distract the approaching figure. Each choice required precise timing and execution. Cena decided on a combination of actions. He moved toward a small alley slightly off to the side, subtly guiding the man's path without making direct contact. The man followed instinctively, trusting Cena's calm presence. Cena adjusted his pace, keeping the approaching figure in view while ensuring that the man remained unaware of any potential danger from others in the crowd. Every movement was precise, every step deliberate. He noticed the approaching figure slowing slightly, their eyes scanning the crowd more carefully. Cena used this brief moment to create a small distraction. He dropped the folded newspaper near the railing, allowing it to flutter and catch the attention of a few bystanders. The figure's gaze shifted for a fraction of a second, enough for Cena to guide the man a few steps closer to the alley. Cena felt a surge of relief as the man moved safely toward the cover of the alley, but he knew the danger wasn't over. The approaching figure had noticed the movement and was adjusting their path. Cena remained calm, his focus sharp. He analyzed the situation, noting every possible reaction from the figure. He was ready to adapt instantly. The man crouched again, signaling readiness, and Cena noticed the tension in his eyes. He was aware of the threat but relied on Cena's guidance. Cena felt the weight of trust, knowing that the man depended entirely on his observation and actions. He reminded himself to stay calm, patient, and precise. Any sudden panic could ruin the delicate balance of this operation. Cena subtly moved closer to the railing, positioning himself to block the line of sight if needed. The approaching figure's pace increased, and Cena noticed the slight hesitation in their movements. They were aware of something shifting but couldn't pinpoint the source. Cena used this to his advantage, guiding the man further into the alley while keeping the figure distracted by subtle movements in the environment. The man's breathing became slightly more steady as he gained some distance from the threat. Cena remained vigilant, scanning every angle. He observed the approaching figure's eyes narrowing, trying to locate the man. But the subtle gestures and distractions Cena had created kept them guessing. Cena's careful planning was working, but he knew the situation could change in an instant. As the man moved further into the alley, Cena noticed a few more details. The texture of the walls, the position of trash bins, and potential escape routes. He mentally mapped these, preparing for the next phase. The man adjusted his posture, signaling a readiness to move quickly if necessary. Cena felt a sense of calm determination. He knew the immediate danger was being managed, but the overall situation still required careful attention. Cena observed the approaching figure's body language, noting every slight shift in weight, every small gesture. He could see that they were becoming frustrated, aware that the man was slipping out of reach. Cena used this to guide the man further along the alley, subtly ensuring that the path remained safe. The tension in the street remained palpable, but Cena's presence provided a silent shield. The man made a final subtle gesture, signaling that he was ready to move completely out of the danger zone. Cena understood immediately. He guided him toward a safer area, using the crowd, objects, and environmental cues to remain unnoticed. The approaching figure's attention was divided, unable to pinpoint the man's exact location. Cena's careful planning and execution were paying off. As they reached a relatively safer area, Cena felt a brief moment of relief. The man's breathing was calmer, and the immediate threat seemed less imminent. Cena remained vigilant, knowing that the situation was still delicate. He analyzed the surroundings, noting any remaining potential threats, and prepared for the next phase if needed. Cena's focus never wavered. He had successfully guided the man away from immediate danger, using subtle actions, precise timing, and careful observation. The approaching figure was momentarily distracted, giving them both a chance to regroup. Cena felt a sense of quiet satisfaction, knowing that his actions had made a difference, even if the danger wasn't fully over. He reminded himself that patience, awareness, and careful planning were his greatest tools. The man in danger was safe for now, thanks to Cena's calm and strategic intervention. Cena's mind remained alert, ready to act again if the situation escalated. The ordinary morning had transformed into a test of awareness, courage, and quick thinking. and Cena had risen to the challenge, showing that even in the chaos of everyday life, careful observation and decisive action could make all the difference. Cena guided the man further down the alley, careful to stay just out of the approaching figure's line of sight. The tension in the air was thick and every movement felt amplified. Cena's mind worked like a machine, calculating angles, timing, and possible reactions from the figure. The man followed silently, trusting Cena completely, unaware of the exact risks he faced. Cena knew that any wrong step could expose them both. The approaching figure had slowed, clearly realizing that something had shifted. Their eyes scanned the crowd, narrowing as they tried to locate the man. Cena's heart beat faster, but he forced himself to remain calm, adjusting his position so that the man stayed hidden while he maintained control of the situation. He noticed that the figure's movements had become more aggressive, a sign that they were desperate to regain control. Cena realized that the situation was about to reach a tipping point. He needed to make a move that would ensure the man's safety while minimizing risk. He saw a narrow side street that could serve as a temporary refuge. Cena guided the man toward it subtly, using casual gestures and positioning to create the illusion of a normal walk. Every step was deliberate, every glance measured. The approaching figure's frustration was visible now, their pace quickening. As they reached the side street, Cena signaled for the man to crouch behind a stack of crates. The man obeyed instantly, sliding behind the cover with a mix of fear and relief. Cena stayed just ahead, keeping watch and ready to act. The approaching figure entered the main alley, scanning methodically, unaware of the side street and the hidden man. Cena's careful planning was buying them precious time. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from the main alley, a dropped can clattering against the pavement. The approaching figure turned sharply, their attention momentarily diverted. Cena used this distraction to his advantage. He adjusted his position slightly, ready to intervene if the figure noticed any movement from the side street. The man remained quiet, holding his breath, and Cena felt a rush of relief that they had remained undetected. Cena noticed a nearby pedestrian glancing curiously at the alley. He subtly adjusted his body language, moving naturally to block the line of sight, making it seem like the man was simply part of the bustling street scene. Every action was about maintaining the illusion of normalcy while keeping the man safe. Cena's attention to detail was critical. One small mistake could reveal their position. The approaching figure seemed to realize that something was off. Their eyes scanned more carefully and they moved cautiously, almost as if anticipating a trap. Cena felt the tension spike. The figure's awareness was increasing, and he knew it was only a matter of time before they might spot the man. He thought quickly, considering how to create a subtle diversion that would draw attention away without escalating the danger. Cena's eyes landed on a stack of cardboard boxes nearby. He shifted slightly and kicked one gently, sending it tumbling into a nearby trash can. The noise caught the approaching figure's attention and they turned sharply, distracted for a critical few seconds. Cena used this moment to guide the man further behind the crates, deeper into the side street where they could remain unseen. The figure's frustration grew, but their focus had been temporarily broken. As the man settled behind the crates, Cena noticed a faint glimmer of something in the figure's hand, perhaps a phone or device they were using to track movements. Cena realized that the threat was more prepared than he had initially thought. He had to remain even more careful, moving strategically to protect the man while avoiding detection. Every small gesture mattered. The approaching figure moved back into the main alley, muttering under their breath, clearly aware that they were losing control. Cena took a moment to breathe, maintaining vigilance and scanning for any additional threats. He considered the next steps, knowing that guiding the man out of immediate danger was only part of the challenge. They needed to reach a secure location where the figure could no longer interfere. Cena noticed a small opening leading to a quieter street. He subtly motioned to the man, using a combination of gestures and body positioning to indicate the direction. The man nodded slightly, understanding the silent instructions, and began moving cautiously. Cena followed, keeping close enough to intervene if necessary while using buildings and other obstacles as cover. The approaching figure's focus was still on the main alley, giving them a clear path to move safely. As they reached the quieter street, Cena allowed himself a brief sense of relief. The man's breathing was more relaxed and the immediate threat seemed to diminish, but Cena remained alert, aware that the situation was not yet fully resolved. He observed the environment, noting exits, potential obstacles, and the flow of people. His mind remained focused, ready to respond to any sudden change. Cena guided the man to a slightly hidden corner, out of sight from the main street. He signaled for the man to crouch again, and the man complied, showing a mixture of exhaustion and gratitude. Cena felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that his actions had made a tangible difference. The approaching figure was now further away, and the immediate danger had been mitigated, but Cena's vigilance never wavered. He noticed a few bystanders in the area, some moving casually, others glancing curiously at the street. Cena used their presence strategically, adjusting his position to blend into the crowd and maintain a protective barrier around the man. Every movement was calculated to ensure safety, while remaining inconspicuous. Cena's attention to detail had created a fragile but effective shield. The man in danger finally spoke in a whisper, expressing his gratitude and explaining that he had been in a situation far more perilous than Cena had initially realized. Cena listened carefully, acknowledging his words with calm nods, but he focused on the environment, anticipating any residual threats. He knew that being prepared was just as important as the actions he had already taken. Cena then noticed the approaching figure retreating slowly, their frustration evident, scanning one last time before leaving the immediate area. The tension in Cena's chest eased slightly, but he maintained his vigilance. He guided the man further into a safer spot, away from the main streets and potential witnesses who could inadvertently reveal their position. The man's trust in Cena was clear, and Cena felt the responsibility keenly, understanding that any lapse could undo the progress they had made. As the man settled into the temporary safety of the hidden corner, Cena allowed himself to relax just enough to observe the surroundings and ensure that there were no lingering threats. He felt a quiet pride in the careful, strategic actions he had taken, knowing that they had successfully navigated a dangerous situation. The man's relief was palpable, and Cena knew that his quick thinking and calm presence had been crucial in achieving this outcome. The situation had escalated from a simple observation of a signal to an active intervention that required precision, patience, and awareness. Cena's actions had been invisible to most, but the impact was profound. He had prevented immediate danger and provided the man with a chance to regain safety. Cena's focus on careful planning and human-centric decision-making had made all the difference in this tense encounter. Cena watched as the approaching figure disappeared down the main street, their presence fading into the background. He felt a mix of relief and lingering alertness. The immediate danger had passed, but he knew that the situation required careful reflection and understanding. The man he had helped remained behind the crates, catching his breath and trying to process what had just happened. Cena motioned subtly for him to stay calm and assured him that the danger was gone for now. The man's eyes reflected gratitude and disbelief. He whispered a few words of thanks, expressing how precarious his situation had been. Cena nodded, letting his actions speak louder than words. He knew that explaining the details might not make sense immediately. The gestures, the timing, the careful navigation through the streets, all of it was delicate and required discretion. Cena's focus was on ensuring that the man felt safe and understood the seriousness of the situation without overwhelming him. As the street around them returned to its normal rhythm, Cena allowed himself to take in the scene. People were walking by, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. Traffic continued as usual, and the city carried on with its familiar hum. Cena found it almost surreal that such intensity could exist in the midst of ordinary life. It was a reminder that danger often hides in plain sight, and the smallest gestures can carry the weight of life and death. He guided the man to a slightly more open area, still keeping him out of sight from potential threats. Cena's eyes scanned for exits, safe paths, and any remaining signs of danger. He wanted to ensure that once they left the immediate area, the man could continue safely on his way. Cena's experience in observation and subtle intervention had allowed them to navigate a delicate balance between staying hidden and moving forward. It was a skill honed by patience and acute attention to detail. The man began to relax slightly, his breathing more even, but Cena remained vigilant. He asked simple questions, trying to understand what had led to the SOS signal and the immediate threat. The man spoke cautiously, explaining that he had been in a situation where he needed to reach out discreetly, and that any misstep could have resulted in serious consequences. Cena listened carefully, absorbing each detail, while mentally piecing together the full scope of what had occurred. As they moved further from the alley and into a quieter section of the street, Cena reflected on the subtle power of human connection and awareness. The man's trust in him, the ability to interpret a hidden signal, and the coordinated, quiet actions had all combined to prevent disaster. Cena's focus on careful observation and decisive, calm action had made a tangible difference. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that, even without recognition, he had fulfilled his responsibility. The man expressed a desire to continue to a secure location, and Cena guided him along safe paths, using the layout of the streets, buildings, and crowd patterns to maintain discretion. The man's pace was cautious, but with Cena's guidance he moved with confidence and a growing sense of security. Each step was deliberate, ensuring they remained unseen by anyone who might pose a threat. Cena kept an eye on the surrounding environment, noticing subtle changes in pedestrian movement, the behavior of nearby vehicles, and the positioning of street vendors. These details mattered. He had learned that awareness of the environment could provide critical advantages, allowing small interventions that could prevent escalation. His movements were fluid and natural, blending into the everyday flow of the city while maintaining vigilance. The man asked questions about Cena's actions and methods, curious about how he had interpreted the SOS signal and anticipated the approaching figure's moves. Cena answered simply, emphasizing observation, patience, and careful decision-making. He explained that understanding small gestures, body language, and subtle environmental cues could allow someone to act effectively without drawing attention. The man listened intently, recognizing the importance of these skills in navigating dangerous situations. As they reached a more secure area, Cena paused to assess the situation. The immediate threat was gone, the approaching figure no longer a concern, and the man was in a position where he could safely continue on his own. Cena felt a sense of closure for this part of the experience, knowing that his intervention had successfully prevented harm. The relief in the man's eyes was mirrored by Cena's own quiet satisfaction. Cena reflected on the broader implications of what had occurred. Ordinary life often conceals extraordinary challenges, and the ability to remain observant and composed can make a significant difference. He understood that heroism was not always public or recognized. Sometimes it existed in subtle, invisible actions that protect and preserve life without fanfare. This experience reinforced his belief in the value of vigilance, discretion, and calm decisiveness. The man expressed deep gratitude once again, acknowledging Cena's role in his safety. Cena smiled lightly, deflecting the praise, and emphasized that the signal itself was what mattered. The recognition of a need for help, and the timely, careful response. He encouraged the man to remain aware of his surroundings and to trust his instincts in the future, reinforcing the importance of self-reliance in potentially dangerous situations. As the man departed, Cena watched him integrate back into the normal rhythm of the city, blending in with the crowd. He felt a sense of quiet fulfillment, knowing that his vigilance had provided a crucial difference in the outcome. The experience left a lasting impression, reminding him of the importance of attention, empathy, and subtle action in everyday life. Cena then walked back through the streets, observing the ordinary scenes around him with a renewed perspective.